Are you winning, son?
After watching a fantastic first cour for Bleach TYBW War arc, you'd probably think it'd be hard to top it off. Well. Let's just say Kubo's bag paired with Studio Pierrot is the new dream team. The second cour was just as good, if not better than the last. With amazing fights, incredible animation, ridiculously hyped bankais, new casts, etc. You know, instead of naming off everything, let's just take a trip down memory lane and see just how peak this cour was. Starting with all the new bankais and shikais we've seen, I've read the manga so nothing was really a surprise to me, but props to Studio Pierrot for putting in this high tier animation with all these bankais. My guy Sajin unfortunately got packed, but at least he went out like a champ with his new and improved bankai / human wolf form, which was CGI but still really well done. Nonetheless, it still hurt me to see him go though. Shinji's bankai, which is incredibly overpowered, was miraculously showcased since it wasn't included in the manga, but instead an extra scene that was included into the anime, thanks to Kubo, who's been working with the studio to add extra parts he didn't get to include in the manga. Senjumaru was another good example of this with her bankai called I couldn't even tell you what her bankai does exactly. All I know that is she put in crazy amount of work and probably a top 7 strongest character in Bleach. I was extremely thrilled by this considering they went off the manga and even added extra scenes during the Squad Zero fight as well. The Ice Queen herself, Rukia, with my absolute favorite bankai in the entire series. Ridiculously majestic, couldn't even believe the amount of animation they put into this. I will defend Studio Pierrot's name until the end of time for how perfect they animated this bankai. It's ridiculous this is the same studio that even animated the first chunk of Bleach. Also gotta give respect to the GOAT Kubo for even giving her this majestic bankai in the first place. Watching her one-shot ass node and then having that small sentimental moment with Byakuya at the end really brought tears to my eyes. Renji's improved bankai was probably a huge surprise to most anime fans considering how dope this guy looked, especially pulling up to save the other captains and finally catching a dub. Kensei and Torobashi both showing off their bankais, but getting packed right after was also kinda sick. And the final bankai they showcased was Ichibe's during his fight with Yuhaba. Ichibe as a whole is such a fun and sick character to begin with. Kubo generally doesn't miss when it comes to creating new casts for each arc, and with the 1000-Year Blood War arc, he killed it. So giving someone like Ichibe a paintbrush as a Zanpakuto, and then paired with a sick-ass bankai was deadly and bound to be the most entertaining thing to watch. Next, I want to talk about fights. Obviously it's a war, so it isn't crazy to see so many fights, but I'm going to start with my favorite fight, Kenpachi versus Gremmy. This fight was easily a top 5 fight for me this arc. The fact Kenpachi fought against a Quincy who can manipulate anything he thinks into reality and won is insane. Gremmy used guns, clones, outer space, bombs, a meteor, and Kenpachi tanked it all and still won, while only using a Shikai, which was finally revealed during the fight. It was expected that he'd eventually use it, since after the Unohana fight, the sword spoke to him and said its name. But man, what a perfect way to present Kenny's new strength. Rukia versus Ass-Node was another one of my favorite fights, mainly because we got to see Rukia, Bankai, and Byakuya again. It was a quick fight, but still one to point out. Renji versus Mask was another good one because of Renji's Bankai, and because he saved the other 2 captains. Ichibe versus Yuhaba was probably the most entertaining fight next to Kenny versus Gremmy, considering 2 very strong opponents against one another. And we finally get a look at just how strong Ichibe really is. His Ichimonji can erase any name from existence once covered in ink, which could be incredibly overpowered against anyone using a Zanpakuto, because you couldn't go Bankai or even Shikai since you can't say the name of your sword. This is also why Ichigo never heard Yuhaba's true name way back in Soul Society, because it was apparently the doing of Ichibe's. Squad Zero versus Yuhaba's guards. A lot of manga fans complain about this fight because Squad Zero never lived up to their name. But I will say, their complaints should be silenced after watching the anime. A lot of added scenes that weren't in the manga were added during this fight. Otsu is incredibly overpowered, Senjumaru's Bankai is incredibly overpowered, Squad Zero as a whole is holding up to their name as royal guards for the Soul King as we watch them fold the Quincy's over and over, not giving up and finally fighting back. A lot of impactful moments have gone down this part as well, like Toshiro, Rangekyu, Kensei, Otorabashi, and Sajin all getting packed up. Super unfortunate, and to make matters worse, Giselle turned them all into zombies and had them working for her. Also strangely turned Bambita into a zombie as well. But one thing that Studio Pierrot should have done was reveal Giselle's gender the way they did it in the manga. The way Yumi catches her in a lie was hilarious and should have been adapted, but I guess now they want to be family friendly. Mayuri doing Mayuri things, always being the most underrated character in terms of being the most helpful during arcs. Ichigo returns back to the Soul Society to help fight after training up in the Royal Palace. Kisuke has joined the fight along with old friends. Chad, Orihime, and Yoriichi are back with Ichigo. 4 of the Espadas from back in the Ranka arc have joined Mayuri to also fight against the zombies. We got to see a lot of different Quincy abilities as well that we didn't see in the first Cour. Bambita and her entourage all had different abilities, controlling lightning, explosives, eating people, turning people into zombies. This weirdo makes people fall in love with him. I don't know why Kubo decided to add this, but I guess he wanted it. Gremmy's imagination is one of my favorite abilities shown. Lily with his sniper, which is somewhat different from what we usually see, considering that his ability pierces anything between him and his target. Askinak, who can control blood in his opponents and himself. Masked Man, who gets stronger and stronger the more this little guy cheered for him, was hilarious, because even if he died, as long as the little guy cheered him on, he'd be revived and his strength would increase. At the end of the last episode, they kind of left a little teaser showing that the head captain Shunsui is on the move, but what exactly is his motive? You'll have to see in the next Cour to find out. One of my favorite moments, which a lot of you might not understand because you haven't read the manga, is Ichigo returning to the fight with a big grin on his face. I promise you this moment has so much depth to it, it genuinely warms my heart. But I can't sit here and rant forever. Instead, I'll do it in a future video, so make sure you keep an eye out for it. I mean, Bleach should be coming out soon anyway, right? Unfortunately, Bleach's next Cour won't be out for another 2 seasons, but fans have waited long enough for this adaptation that I think they can wait a couple more anime seasons. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed this type of content, and subscribe to keep up with all the newest uploads. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.